The history of the Kyoto Protocol. The basic principles of climate change are familiar to most people by now. As sunlight shines on Earth, some of its heat is trapped in the atmosphere, similar to the way a greenhouse is kept warm. Our planet's natural levels of water vapor and other gases produce this greenhouse effect. Natural greenhouse gases also include carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, and nitrous oxide, N2O. The resulting warmer temperatures helped make life on this planet possible. However, since the beginning of the industrial age, the greenhouse gas CO2 has been building up in Earth's atmosphere as a result of the burning of fossil fuels. Some scientists estimate that the level of CO2 has risen by at least 30% since the 1800s. Other gases released by human activity are also thought to increase the warming effect, namely hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs, perfluorocarbons, PFCs, and sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. The buildup of these gases is believed to be the major cause of higher temperatures in recent years. Consequences of such global warming could include higher sea levels, the spread of deserts, and the drying up of fresh water sources. In December 1997, at a United Nations summit on global warming in Kyoto, Japan, representatives of over 150 nations adopted an agreement to limit emissions of CO2, CH4, N2O, HFCs, PFCs, and SF6. The central goal of the Kyoto Protocol was to slash emissions to at least 5% below 1990 levels by 2012. The protocol was signed by 38 industrialized countries. Developing nations, including China and India, were not required to follow the Kyoto guidelines. The 15 EU nations at the summit agreed to further reduce emissions to 8%, the US to 7%, and Japan to 6% below 1990 levels. The U.S. signed the protocol on November 12, 1998, but it never received the necessary approval from the U.S. Senate. Opponents claimed the Kyoto standards would harm the economy. Moreover, they said it would fail to prevent climate change, since major polluters like China were excluded. Russia and Australia proved resistant for similar reasons. Despite these doubts, many countries continued to push for the protocol. In order for the agreement to come into effect, it needed participation from 55 nations. The Kyoto Protocol didn't meet this target until February 2005, when Russia finally joined. Over a decade later, has the treaty been a success? That depends on whom you ask. By the 2012 deadline, member countries had slashed emissions to almost 23% below 1990 levels, far beyond the goal. That year, the treaty was extended through 2020. However, critics argue that Kyoto does not deserve the credit for the cuts. Most developed countries had already passed laws to reduce emissions on their own. Further, some of the improvement in member countries was accomplished by moving factories to non-member developing nations. And Russia and Japan have dropped out completely. The protocol now covers only 15% of global emissions, which continue to rise. On the other hand, supporters praise some of Kyoto's lesser-known achievements. It created an international market for trading carbon credits, for example, as well as clearer rules for measuring and reporting emissions. The treaty also provides a foundation for future action. Cristiana Figueres leads the UN team in charge of climate agreements. The Kyoto Protocol was the first critical step, she said in 2015. Today, we must take further and more far-reaching action towards a truly sustainable future.